This is our composer cut for our healing soundscape, which was recorded in 1986 and released on cassette at the time. It was also re-released as a CD in 2000. The Healing album was really Gary's first album in what was then the genre of New Age music, which was really just starting to come up. A couple of labels were starting to promote that type of music. And this was, Gary was coming out of his Babylon era where he was working with a band doing prog rock music. And he always felt the spiritual calling to bring through this type of music. And so this was a solo effort on his part. He recorded this in a real-time situation in 1986, which was roughly a year, a little less than a year before we met. And for him, it was the first step to commit to committing his music to his spiritual path, and that this was how he had to do it, that he couldn't follow this other path that he thought might have been important in terms of, just having people hear his music. So he felt this connection to Source was guiding him to bring this album forth. He didn't really have the recording gear at that time, and he only had one keyboard with pretty minimal sounds available at that time. It was during this timeline that he was also playing music with a progressive rock group called Babylon. And he was ultimately not happy with this music and just more or less the situation that it is when working with a group of musicians. It definitely takes a lot of adjustment to being able to work with a group of beings and try to get your voice heard. And he was pretty strong in what he was trying to bring through, so it didn't always fit right with that particular band, but he did enjoy his time spent with that band, and they did make some good music together, which is still available today in the prog rock catalogs that are out there. It is considered one of the top albums in the prog rock category. The time spent with the band and the members was really a valuable time, and it helped him clear a lot of past life karmic energy that was between him and the various band members. So if you want to hear or listen more to that, you can look up Gary Chambers' Babylon, and you should be able to find some of the tracks. And if you were a prog rock fan and if you do listen, you'll be aware of some of the stylings of that type of music coming through in his albums that we created. So when he did this album, it was in less than ideal situation, really, because he didn't really have the recording gear, which meant he had to, ask somebody else to do the recording, and they were all, typically noisy and partying, and he's trying to bring through this, cosmic piece of music in real time. But he managed to do it because when he got into that zone, he could, for the most part, block out all of that other stuff. So it's really kind of amazing what came through when kind of know what was going on behind him while he was trying to create and bring through this music. So Gary's definitely an old soul, somebody who's played music for many, many lifetimes. And he knew his mission this lifetime, and it just kept coming through. Even if he would try other things, it always brought him back to the music. So he had always been on his spiritual path in this lifetime, and it was always a determining factor for all of his life's decisions. And, he certainly wanted to fit in with his peers, which most young adults do care for, but ultimately he knew he couldn't fit into that mold, so he began to step away. So this album was brought through with, lower quality equipment, and it's pretty amazing despite the recording quality and everything that it held up. He really resisted to letting us release it because of that. But it was such a beautiful piece, and it was too difficult for us to get the original files back to remaster it and everything, so we agreed to let it be as it is. Gary had this ability to block out the world around him and just receive the information, and the music would just flow through him. And ultimately, this was his healing process as well. It was a calling to others to awaken, as well as for his personal healing work. This is actually one of the most popular albums in our catalog that even still sells today, because it's so gentle and soft and inviting, and it definitely, if you dive deep into it enough, it definitely brings up your own internal longing for your connection to soul essence and source vibration. It's an excellent album whenever you're feeling kind of low energy, not sure what's going on in your life, and feel like you need to dive deep into something that's going on around you and within you, and or if you're also not feeling physically unwell, it's probably the best one to work with in our catalog, as it can be really nice and subtle down into the cellular levels of the body. It really calls us to connect deeply with our soul essence, which is why this is one of the first albums that I recommend people start with. From there, it'll also reconnect you with some very old and ancient history that you've journeyed through in many of your lives, and also allow you to reclaim lost power through the various traumas and dramas that have filled your life. In addition to this, for Gary, this was also a calling for me to come forth. He knew I was on the planet and had been remaining open to our reunion, so there were patterns within the music to call that energy forth into his life. By that time, he was done with what we'd call the practice relationships, and was determined to not become entwined in another mundane human drama with somebody else. For me, just prior to meeting him, I was in a karmic relationship that needed to end, as it had run its course as well. I was tired, depressed, and had always felt that there was someone on the planet that was my divine mate. And since my teenage years, I had received dreams and visions and various sensations about our connection, and I had been looking for that in my relationships, but hadn't found it yet. The harmonic convergence in August of '87 was a pivotal point for me. I had gone to an event, there was about 30 people there, and there were many rituals and ceremonies that were being prepared by the group that led the event. They did this one group rebirthing experience, and it took me really deep. I went back to a pre-birth experience and actually, revisited my birthing process, which was cesarean. As a tip to those who were born cesarean, it's a really good idea to go back through this, because there's pieces that the body misses when it doesn't go through the actual birth canal and so on and so forth. So anyway, I crawled out of the birth canal and had this really amazing experience. I had visions. And as I had that experience in those visions, I had these visions of my relationship with my twin flame, although at that time I didn't know that concept. At least it wasn't something I was conscious of at that point in my awakening process. But it brought me back to memories of our lives together and our commitment that we had made for this life. It was vague and ephemeral, but nevertheless, when I looked back on it and started putting pieces together, it made a lot of sense. So I was getting, glimpses and higher knowing and that sort of thing. And following this event, so many things changed for me, and the energy opened up, and I realized that I was here to do my spiritual path as well, and that this other social engagement level was no longer important to me. It didn't hold the same desire and intensity. So about a month after the harmonic convergence, my sister asked me to go to a grand opening event that was happening at a healing arts center here in the area. I was reluctant to go because I didn't really feel that well and didn't really feel like going out. But she really wanted to attend because there were some special people there that she was trying to connect with. So anyway, I went along with her, and when I entered the event, I could hear this music playing that immediately spoke to me and drew me into the back room. It's a fairly large center. So I started going into the back room, and I could feel this energetic experience happening to me. It was like a pull and an expansion at the same time. Anyway, I made my way back to the room where the music was playing, and it was all candle lit, and everybody was laying on the floor, sitting in lotus and meditating. And I found a spot where I could, finally just settle down and see the musician. And, I was just in awe. The light that was surrounding him was astounding. The energy in the room was extremely palpable and very, very high. And the light was just beaming from everybody. And he was in a complete channel mode at that time, bringing through these sounds that I had never heard before. And there really weren't albums out there of this nature at that time. So I was totally mesmerized for like an hour or more while he did this concert. And in the end, when he was done, he told the audience that he currently had an album available, which was Healing, but that he didn't have any copies with him, and that if anyone wanted one, to come up and let him know, and he would give them information. So that was my perfect opportunity to get to talk to him. And of course, I've been deeply in love with him ever since that moment. I knew and he knew that we were what we had been waiting for. And I'll share more on this story in the Twin Flames podcast that I hope to get started one day. Now, we didn't know that in that moment. We knew something in that moment, but of course it took us some time to unfold a lot of this energy. But anyway, I got the Healing album and I played it like nonstop. I was a massage therapist at the time, so of course I played it in my room for all my clients. And then I meditated with it at night as well. It really spoke to me on such a deep level, like no other music had done before. And because this was the early days of New Age music, there really weren't that many albums of this nature at that time. It revealed to me so much about myself and why I had chosen the path that I did and what I was here to do in this lifetime. It helped me review some of my key past life imprints that I needed to remember in order to step into my role of service on the planet. This was particularly true of the track called Return to Atlantis, which is, later we found out, was a predominant place where Gary and I had originally, well, we're not even sure originally connected. There was something before that, but one of our big memories was back in Atlantis, where we did sound healing work in these powerful sound healing rooms. And Gary played the music, of course, and I did the healing work. So as I listened to the music, it even further emphasized the feelings that I had for Gary. And at this time, I really wasn't in contact with him. We kind of just met, and, we weren't quite sure how we were going to connect at that time. He had situations going on, I had situations going on, and there was some clearing work that needed to be done by both of us. But it gave us this time in between to sort of suss out the energy and feel it from the energetic perspective. And my feelings for him only deepened the more I listened to that music, and the deeper feelings of love that I had for him were just becoming so clear to me that it was really hard to ignore. So for me personally, it was also a time to really be clear about my personal path, and it was time for me to start accepting my power and my personal gifts on the planet. And the beginnings of our union here provided me the space to explore the depths that I needed to in order to release the past and move into divine service. When we actually re-released this album in 2000, Gary didn't really want me to release it. He felt there was some bad karma around the project because of the situation and the creation process and all of that. But I just couldn't let go of it. It was such a profound piece for me, and I knew other people would love it, and it would be a great beginning album to give to people. And so, anyway, I won, and we released it. So it became one of our biggest sellers over the years, and it continues to assist people to awaken and to move into their time of service. It's a very powerful album, and I hope you enjoy it. I love to hear your experiences with it, and please feel free to share your comments and thoughts below. Healing is the best soundscape to start with as you begin to engage with these transmissions. And we offer here the original 40-minute album as well as an extended version, which is close to about 3 hours long, which is great for longer meditation sessions and for drifting off to sleep.
Healing is the best soundscape to start with as you begin to engage with these transmissions. We offer you the original 40-minute album, as well as an extended version, which is close to 3 hours long. This is great for longer sessions and for drifting off to sleep.